Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Good Hope FM Warrior Woman webinar, proudly powered by Engen. My name is Leigh-Anne Williams. I'm your host this afternoon, and it really is so wonderful to be gathered here again to be able to tackle another important subject, not only for women, but also in our country as well. I want to extend a big warm welcome to you, wherever you might be joining us from, whatever platform you are listening to this and watching this on. I want to say a big welcome to you and thank you for making the time to connect with us as well. Throughout the whole webinar, you can give us your questions or comments, and we would love to engage with you as well. And then if you registered on www.goodhopefm.co.za, you very well could be standing a chance to walk away with a 1,000 Rand Engen voucher, as well as a 1,000 Rand Canal Walk shopping voucher as well. So worth watching for? I definitely think so. We're currently also live on Facebook, but please do register on Good Hope FM's website, because I want you to very well stand a chance of walking away with that amazing hamper. So today is a very important day. I am so honored and excited to be speaking to the women that we are going to be speaking to today. And it really is a conversation. We know that we're not going to fix everything today, but this is an ongoing conversation that we need to not stop speaking about. We need to keep the fire and the passion going, because gender-based violence is something that needs to be eradicated. It is a scourge that has taken hold of our country in the most detrimental ways, and it is up to us, each member of society, to make sure that we make our voices heard, and of course that this is something that we continue to hold government accountable for, our police, civil society, even ourselves, our homes, our communities, to make sure that our women and our children are safe. Now, to have this conversation with us, I've got three incredible women that are going to be taking part in this webinar. First and foremost, I want to welcome the beautiful Nicole Mirkin. Welcome to the Warrior Woman webinar. You are a warrior woman in yourself, my love.
Hi, it is so wonderful to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on this webinar, and I really look forward to sharing some really useful information with everyone today.
Nicole, we met each other last year. I was still on Espresso. You were also part of a panel of 3 guests that were on the show as well. And we have continued to have a relationship. You've been back to Good Hope FM many times. So I really feel so much love for you, as though I know you. You're like a little sister to me as well. But how has life been going throughout the lockdown? I know that it's been a challenge for so many of us, but how have you been doing?
I've been well. I must say it's been very difficult, especially for our nonprofit organization. We usually just teach free self-defense classes to women in high-risk areas, but with the lockdown, we've had to change so much. I mean, one of the biggest changes that has happened in my life is that as an NPO, we have to start offering free legal advice to women and children in situations of abuse at the moment. And that's quite interesting, because before lockdown, we never needed to do such things, and it's very scary to see that now that is so needed in our community. So a lot has changed. The work that we're doing is a lot more heartbreaking, but definitely still so moving. And I'm so glad that we're doing what we're doing. So regardless of the harsh changes, I'm positive and I'm hopeful, and I know that we're moving in the right direction.
We certainly are moving in the right direction. Now, Nicole is one of the founding directors of Fight Back SA, which is an NPO aimed at providing self-defense classes, self-development workshops, as well as female empowerment for young women. The workshops teach young women how to harness their potential and value their individual selves. Fight Back SA also connects women to the resources they may need should they have gone through traumatic experiences. So we are so happy to have you here, Nicole. And of course, as we continue with the rest of the webinar, I really know that you're going to be sharing some really important information with us. Now, also joining us today is another young woman that I think I saw about 2 years ago at an event called 1,000 Women, One Voice. She was the keynote speaker. I was running in and out of the auditorium, but when I got to her talk, I was completely just frozen in my space listening to such an incredible woman by the name of Grizelda, Grootboom, who is a published author and an activist against human trafficking, who supports fellow survivors undergoing rehabilitation. Now, she's currently working at Embrace Dignity, which is an NPO based in Cape Town. It's part of a growing global movement working to restore dignity for all people by advocating for law reform and public education to address commercial sexual exploitation and human trafficking. In a nutshell, Grizelda, welcome to the webinar. How are you, my darling?
Thank you so much, Leigh-Anne. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so exciting to be here and being with women. You know, we sort of miss those moments now, being in a room with 1,000 women, getting 1,000 hugs. But times are different. It's a time change. So I'm great. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity again, and just bringing a voice in this time of Women's Month. And thank you so much, Good FM, for Warrior Women. I feel so honored to have this opportunity. It's been extremely hard for a lot of the women we work with, you know, with Embrace Dignity. It's very hard for us to go out there and with the lockdown regulation that was happening so much, we were not allowed to go and see some of our survivors, victims, and just the things that they were seeking at that particular time. But we feel very grateful and blessed that we're still here. Some of our sisters of Embrace Dignity and also from the Kwanele movement that is part of Embrace Dignity, you know, some of them have lost their loved ones during this time, and it was very hard for us to go out support. And also just continuing doing awareness around the issue of human trafficking, sex trafficking, as we can see that, you know, it has grown, and a lot of kids are just going missing, and it's so scary. And I think, yeah, we're in the stage where we just, as South Africa women, we need to just come together and stand. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing right here. And we're so thankful that you have availed yourself for this really, really important chat that we're having today. Now, another beautiful woman who is joining us today, Sarah Prince, welcome. Sarah is a wife, she's a mother, she's a missionary, she's a pastor, she's a teacher. She also manages Ubuntu Football, which is a non-profit football academy with a mission to mentor and educate the next generation of great African leaders. Now, this is where they provide elite soccer training, quality education through independent school, mentorships and learning training, and a loving home at the Academy residence for young boys as well. Sarah, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Leigh-Anne. Hello.
It's so good to have you here. Do I hear a bit of an American accent there, Sarah? Tell us more.
Oh, unfortunately, yes, you hear right, Leigh-Anne. My husband and I are both American. We're trying to shake it off. I'm actually Mexican-American, but we have been living here for 11 years. We moved 11 years ago to start the Ubuntu Football Academy, and we actually live in the community of Ocean View, way down south near Fishhook and Komaki. We actually live in Ocean View and raising two beautiful kids here, and so trying desperately to make South Africans allow us to stay here forever. We'll see what happens, but that's the goal.
Wow. That is amazing. Talk about connecting the world. That is so awesome. And I'm so happy that all four of us can be connected in this space, but we're not alone. There are many women and many men as well that are connected right now. So we're so happy that everyone is here and that everyone is settled as well. As we commence the talk on gender-based violence, we all know that it is a profound and widespread problem in South Africa that really does affect every aspect of life. When it comes to gender-based violence, it's not a once-off event. It is something and a trauma that follows people throughout their lives and really does affect civil society. It affects families, it affects communities. And I think that this is just an opportunity for us to just engage with one another, because I know so many women are in a space right now where they don't know what to do. They don't know what's next. I think as a country, yesterday actually, it was a year since the brutal kidnap, rape, and murder of Leigh-Anne in Courtney, an event that I think just rocked the country. we were all left just, I don't know, we were just lame by the entire situation, not only hers, but all of the women who have not been named and all of the children who have lost their lives. And I think we all still feel a really deep sense of sadness, and the country is still so heartbroken. But we need to find answers. We need to know, what do we do? How do we even begin to tackle this? And so many of you are tackling it on a daily basis. Nicole, I want to start with you. There's a saying that says, if the moral test of a nation is how the nation treats its most vulnerable, that being its children and its women, then history will not judge us very kindly. The numbers speak for themselves. Can you give us some of the statistics that we're currently looking at?
Absolutely, and these are quite harrowing statistics, so I'd just like to let everyone know that by sharing them, I'd like to give everyone an idea of just how dire the situation is in South Africa. And I'm going to start by saying that during the length of this webinar, 4 women will be raped. That's just during the length of this webinar. If we put those numbers together, we're looking at an amount of 114 rape cases that are reported to the South African Police Service per day in South Africa. And if that number doesn't mean too much to people, it translates to South Africa having been named the rape capital of the world by Interpol. So the figures are very, very harrowing. And if we're looking at the impact during COVID, it's even worse. During the first week of lockdown, the South African Police Service recorded over 330 calls per day for gender-based violence. That's almost 2,800 calls per week. And those are only the women who managed to get onto a phone. And even more scary, another statistic I'd like to share, is that sexual offences, as detected and investigated by the South African Police Service, has decreased by over 80% in the past year. So our police are not necessarily chasing down these subjects. If we're seeing a decrease in 80% of sexual offences that are being investigated and then being put behind bars by SAPS, that's very scary. And the last thing I'd like to share, just to really, really drive the message home on the issue that we're facing in South Africa, based on the latest national crime statistics for 2020, the domestic violence stats indicate that the 4 main perpetrators that are abusing and beating and bludgeoning our women, they are our boyfriends, our ex-boyfriends, our husbands, and our sons. Those are the top 4 categories of people that are murdering, raping, and killing our women. So the situation is very dire.
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is. It is so entrenched in institutions, in traditions, in cultures, in our homes, in our communities. And what is so shocking with the statistic that you said, it's grown in the last year, this after government has said that it's going to put into place, legislation, it's going to put into place response, prevention, and it seems to not have happened. In fact, it seems to just have gotten worse.
Absolutely. And a lot of the gender-based violence advocacy networks, a lot of the safety centers, myself included, we're asking, where did the money go? The money that was promised after Uyinene's death last year. When we realized that not even a post office is a safe space for a South African woman, that money, no one has seen that money. No one has seen the Thuthuzela centers growing. We haven't seen a more empowered gender-based violence command council. So there are a lot of questions that a lot of us are asking, and I think most of us are very disappointed.
Yeah, they're very disappointed indeed. And it's so important that we talk about these statistics. It's so important that we talk about numbers, because behind every single number is an actual person. That is a person that was living, that was breathing, that had hopes, that had dreams, that had aspirations, whose life was cut short by those 4 main perpetrators that you named there, the closest to us. And that is why it is so important that we speak about this. But I think somebody who can maybe even shed more light on that exact thing, Grizelda Grootboom, yours is a story that is harrowing to listen to, and I can't even begin to even think about how much more to have lived through that. So we talk about gender-based violence, but something that we also need to be talking about just as much is sex trafficking, human trafficking. The fact that this is happening on a daily basis. Our president said 2 months ago that gender-based violence is the second pandemic in South Africa. It was actually here before COVID. It is not the second pandemic. This is something that has been here, that we have been struggling against. And I sometimes ask myself, if we had the kind of response that we had to COVID-19 for gender-based violence, what could we not have achieved if we had the same kind of veracity and aggressiveness that we dealt with in terms of gender-based violence? But would you do us the immense honor, Grizelda, just sharing some of your story with us?
Thank you very much, Leigh-Anne. I grew up in Woodstock, and obviously during the time of they call it the post-apartheid, where things were changing in the District 6 Woodstock. You know, my parents were not on that list, and that's how we became homeless. Me and my dad, we became homeless. I ended up in a shelter in town, which is on Splik Shelter, and in that shelter, we just, you know, were so many of the street kids coming from these areas that has been, you know, stripped from us, our homes, and we became street kids. I lived under the Half Bridge in Cape Town, which was home for me. And my first encounter of rape culture was me going back and trying to knock on my mom's door in Khayelitsha, Site C. And of course, we know the stigma that comes from a child that's not part of the same marriage that the husband she was married to. And that ended up again back for me to go back in the streets. And growing up between the streets and the shelter was like a whole survival that you just need to live. You had to learn the gangsterism life of the 26 to be able to survive. Sometimes we ended up in the police station, and that's where we started to be, you know, groomed by trying to get out of the police station, and you know, we had to be kissing and touching police in uniform. So basically your trust, the system just disappeared, because for me to get transferred to a shelter, or for me to get out of a cell in more than 24 hours, a policeman would ask me to do some sexual stuff on him. And that's how I got released. And that's how I lived my life. I lived my life basically just on tennis, on the drugs and the boxes that we sleep on. And today, you know, when I walk through town and seeing homeless people is insane. And of course, as we all know, the system of you know, DSD, social development shelters, when you turn 18, you have to leave. You developed, you're not developed, they found your family or not. And in that year was the year where I probably had a lot of anxiety, because the shelter was sort of my safe place a bit. Now and then I would go back to it, take a bath, share a bed. And in that year is where I met a friend through, of course, you know, she was coming from a good family, but she had a drug problem. So she sort of met us in gardens and started joining us on like in daily basis, smoking drugs with us, and we became very close. You know, she would walk with me to the shelter, change, and I walk with her to the bus stop. And that year was the year where she was saying that she's leaving and they're going to be going to Johannesburg. And I was like, wow, this would be a great opportunity for me also to move out Cape Town, since I'm going to be by the end of the year be kicked out. And I said, listen, is it possible if I can come to Joburg with you? And I promise, you know, I will do whatever you want me to do just to get a better life. And of course, she said, yeah, you can come through. Found my way to Joburg. I was extremely excited because I knew this girl for a whole year. You know, she used to hang around with us under the bridge smoking. And if we know very well the gangsterism life, it was a thing of, if they don't know you and you don't know the 26th Constitution, in Afrikaans, like Dala. It's basically, let's deal with this person. And Manita, VSD. So loyalty was built in that, because we had to protect her through our gang leaders. So I felt safe with this person going to Joburg with her. But not knowing that she had other plans for me. I got to Joburg, we drove to a flat that was in Yeovil, She said it was her place. Obviously, I trusted that. Walked into the flats. I still just remember all the times the wooden floors. They were so, you know, the cleanness of the house. It was so fresh, straight into my spirit, and thinking to myself, this is a change. I'm finally going to be staying in a place of my own. I'm going to work as a petrol attendant, whatever, changing my life. And she showed me into a room which was very empty, and I was not going to question that because she also moved to Cape Town. And I said I was going to take a nap and she was going to go and get me food. And that was the last time I saw her. And in me taking a nap, of course, I was woken up by 3 men, kicked in the stomach, undressed, and they sort of injected me with a drug behind my knees. And in my mind, I'm thinking, is the house getting robbed? But why am I getting tied up? And as this drug starting to kick in, I've had drugs, and sometimes they get numb here, but this one is going numb in my lower body. And in my head, I'm like, okay, maybe she's in the other room and the same thing is happening to her. But that was not it, until I could feel, you know, my whole body getting numb at the bottom, and on top, I'm butt naked, and my eyes were just not blinking anymore, and they were just duct taped, and that was it. And men started to just come in, and it was an everyday thing. It was me trying to breathe through the smells, me trying to breathe through counting sometimes. Every buyer that came through, you know, it was in the morning, it was in the afternoon, it was in the evening going to the next morning. There was some times of the cleaning up where you just, you know, they mopped because men did whatever they wanted to. There were some times where, you know, my mouth would be extremely dry, but you could just smell the semen on it. I got sort of into just smelling the men to understand the times and the days. And in my mind, I thought, okay, this is just going on for a week or two. And I just remember they brought in a younger girl, and it was, you know, going into midnight, late, very after 12. She was kicking and screaming quite a lot, and I knew that this girl has never been on the street. She's so young, and I feel so sorry for what's about to happen to her. And I got kicked out of the house. And of course, my street animal had to wake up, and I had to find my way back to Park Station. The drugs that I was fed, probably after every client, you know, it has thinned out my blood so much that when I needed a fix, it was more than the one I'm used to. So there was no time wasted. Park Station back then was your busiest place of truck drivers, so they used to stop there. And I told myself, let me just get somebody here, give him a quick, you know, whatever he wants, give me money. And they were pimps, and I was welcomed by the pimps of Iberia and Hillbrow. And from the age of 18, just going day to day, 18, 19, 20, 21, and I learned that I was just moved basically from one pimp to another until the age of 26. Ended up in a brothel in Port Elizabeth. And that time it was a brothel we worked for quite a while, you know, and that was the same year where I got pregnant with my baby girl Summer. And it was so shocking because when you found out 3 months, you would still be working. The madam didn't really care. And abortion used to happen quite a lot. You know, the girls would find ways to do abortion, but I didn't understand why the madam really kept me all the way through 6 months. And in 6 months, madam said, you know, Summer has to go. The clients were very, very happy that, you know, her pressure was very good for my private parts. And then in-house abortion took place. And that was the first step of me finding a way to just say no to the next man trying to have sex with me in the brothel. And of course, in saying no to your madam, you know, that was when they kicked me out and beat me up and made sure that I get picked up on the streets of prostitutions in Yeovil. They drove me all the way from Port Elizabeth back to the streets of Hillbridge, dropped me there, and the girls made sure I'd be in the hospital, and that was another step for it. Yeah.
Grizelda, I'm just looking at the comments here. Celeste Schaefer says, I'm extremely sorry for what you've had to endure. Amanda Sickle says, wow, thank you for this and for the amazing panel. I feel like a warrior woman just being here. And I think all of us are incredibly blown away by just this snippet that you've given us of your life. This is a snippet. And we're talking about years and years and years of abuse. And I think we're all just sorry because you were failed. You were failed by those that were in a position of leadership. You were failed by family. You were failed by your community. You were failed by government. You were failed by the police. And this is a story that so many young girls experience. So many women experience on a daily basis of being failed by people that have been put in a position to protect, you know? And I am so amazed at you. I want to know, where does the passion to go on, where does the hope that you have come from? Because sometimes we don't know where it could come from with a story like yours. Where does hope come from for you?
I think my hope first kicked in when I ended up sort of in a baby shelter where babies get thrown away after birth their parents. And for me to get a place to sleep after coming out of rehab, I had to go and stay there. And as a Black woman with criminal record and everything, there was no safe space. You know, you hear 28 people have this stereotype of, it doesn't matter where you're from, you're supposed to be established and everything. And I just remember that I was transferred to the shelter, and you know, they said to me, you're gonna have to wash babies, and babies would come in all types of ways. And I just remember thinking, why? Okay, this is a safe place for me. And when they bring the kids in from wherever the kids get thrown away, from drains, everything, we had to bath them and rock them. And I just remember holding this one baby, telling myself, okay, to get this baby to sleep, I'm gonna lie to it and tell it, listen, I'm gonna make sure that you are in a safe place. And when this baby smiled while sleeping, it was like, okay, I'm sober, I'm human. Somebody is relating to me, as you know, and this is from the coming from drugs and coming from all the pain. And of course, that's where I find the courage. I find the courage from young people just listening to me and finding a way to find me. My book Exit is something that I had to write through a healing process. And also in that process, I found myself just seeking God's presence, not the religious side of things, just me and him. And I think I also found him when I went through so much of my body reacting after the years. You know, the boils started to come through, just going to the clinic, having to deal with the health effects after that, and having to question God, like, dude, if you're going to keep me alive, or you're just going to take me, because I'm too old to be walking around smiling like this, and you want me to be sober. And him just coming through with this grace and love and light and showing me through that, you're mine. I'm going to take my time to clean you up. And don't be afraid. And just meeting people that were so passionate about this without going through the same pain, you know, NGOs and people, and the people I met, it was so surprising. They didn't judge me. They didn't question me. They would always, like, you know, just say, you are so beautiful. You are so encouraged. I would go home and thinking, but you don't know what I've been through. I would just say that. And all of that just showed me so much love and courage. And I think that's one thing a woman in a dark space of abuse or you know, a lot of women these days, they don't get that support. They don't get that mental support. And I think that's the kind of support I so wish that African women could come through. We might not be able to do a lot, but just supporting each other, just giving that call and welcoming me with whatever I have. You know, there are some women that we meet and just that hug with your beautiful smile. And I just remember a woman hugging me. She smelled so good. And I kept on hugging her, and she thought it was like, oh, okay, I'm full of love. Like, no, you smell really good. And she said to me, and for me, that was a change, because where I come from, the smell of semen, the smell of whatever was the most traumatizing thing that I went through. And knowing this woman would not let me go until I feel good about the way she smelled with the hug was amazing. And I think that's where the courage comes from. Women supporting each other, women being there for each other, and just going through what we go through, but still going saying you're very beautiful and thank you and please and gracefully. Yeah.
And that's why we're here, you know, Grizelda. Like, we have such an amazing and an important responsibility as women to stand with one another and to really just come around each other, because we understand. We know what it's like. Yeah. You know, there's nothing like being held and feeling that safety. And that's such a wonderful thing. There's a message here from Cheryl Hendricks, who says, "Oh, Grizelda, I am crying. You are so incredibly brave to be able to share. I am so, so sorry. I am the provincial gender for Satu and would love to meet up with you." So that's definitely a lovely connection there. And then Adria October says, "Wow, Grizelda, I am beyond words. I am so sorry for you being failed." But this is hopefully an opportunity for us to hear more of these stories and to become aware, because even within ourselves, there are signs all the time that we need to become more and more aware of. I think as women, it's both a blessing and both unfortunate that we have to become more and more aware of the world around us, because we can only really depend on ourselves and upon so few other people to help us in our time of need. But you, Sarah, are also very big into empowerment. And you were sharing a story when we were chatting the other day, because I do believe that as important as it is for us as women to be in this conversation, men need to be in this conversation as well. This is not something that they should be kept out of. In fact, they should be brought in more and more, because their help and their voices in this is so important as well. And you work with an academy where these young men have made their voices heard. Do you want to tell us more about that?
I'd love to, Leigh-Anne. And I want to say thank you, everyone who's on this panel, for sharing your stories. I am shook, I'm moved, and very humbled to be here and to hear from all of you. So we founded the Ubuntu Football Academy in 2010. And as you women all see, and all the women that are on this webinar right now, you know that in communities of need, it's often the women who are leading those communities. So the women are providing, the women are the emotional stability of the home. The women are working 2-3 jobs, pulling everyone together and making everything happen. And so we are really needing the men of this country to step into who God has created them to be. So bring in the Ubuntu Football Academy. We use elite football, elite soccer, as we would say in America, and a holistic provider. We have education, we have a residence, we do character formation and spiritual formation and mentoring. And the idea is to start with an 11-year-old boy and walk a long, deep journey with them. So we walk a journey with them and help them to learn who they are, what are their dreams in life, what were they created to be. And along this journey last year, we were chatting with many of the boys, and they started to hear through the news as it was becoming something that was they were made aware of, all the gender-based violence issues. And they, as they were talking about these issues, decided that they wanted to have a response to this as well, which we love. So a few of our boys got together and they wrote actually a declaration of who the Ubuntu football man would be in the South African context. And I'd love to read it to you. It says the nation of South Africa is currently experiencing a crisis where our women are being mistreated, abused, raped, and killed. We, the men of the Ubuntu Football Academy, acknowledge the role that we should play to make our women feel safe and respected. As part of our Ubuntu values, we believe that we should honor our women in all aspects, treating not just as equals, but as human beings. We should value them, regarding them as even higher than ourselves. We must use our strength to protect them, love them, treasure them, and not harm them. May we respect their core beliefs without objectifying them. Never would we want women to feel like we are the predators who are choosing to prey on their vulnerability. We are the next generation of leaders. We will take up the responsibility of protecting our women. We decree that we will be examples in our families and communities, displaying how women, young or old, should be treated. And this was written by 18-year-old young men. One of the boys in our community of Ocean View, his name is Grizelda, and he has a good family, a younger sister, and he was always going to be a good man. But at Ubuntu, we want great men. We want men who transform this country, who change the trajectory of where we're all going. And so I want to encourage all of you women to engage young men, to engage the fathers and the sons and the brothers and the uncles, the people in your world, engage them in this conversation, empower them, inspire them. What is their voice? What is their responsibility? What should they be doing as we fight? Because these women have already been doing this fight, but how can we bring more along on this journey?
Absolutely, because there's two things. There's response, and that is how, you know, government responds to gender-based violence, but there's also prevention. And this is one of the things from young, we need to raise our boys up. We need to teach them the value of loving and protecting the women in their lives, and even women that they don't know. That is so huge. Nicole, do you think we're doing enough of that as government? Are there enough programs? Because we know that we come from a country that is fatherless. So many of the young men in our country don't have role models. They don't have fathers to even begin with. So where do we begin when we have so many young men who have no one to mentor them and are just basically running around doing all sorts of harm to the women that are around them?
That's a very good question, Leigh-Anne, and it is such an important question. And I think that we need to see change at a legislative level within our education curriculum. We need to start putting positive masculinity and consent classes into our primary schools for the boy child and into high schools for the young man. There is a huge degree of re-education that needs to take place amongst every culture in South Africa, amongst every single religion, because every South African culture, every religion that is practiced in South Africa in some way or form exacerbates perceptions of gender-based violence and inequality amongst the genders. And we need to begin to tackle those issues. And I think the best place to start is positive masculinity and consent classes in primary school and high school. It can't just be addressed at a young developmental stage. It needs to be carried through to the stages where a young male adult is beginning to find themselves and understand how to relate and consent and behave around women, and especially young women, because a lot of our victims are young women. So I think that, you know, as Fight Back SA is currently in the process of doing this, we're currently busy redrafting our education curriculum to do this, but it's not something that only we have to take up. I think as many advocacy and awareness networks as possible need to take up this call, because unless we change the mindsets of our young men, we are not going to see a behavioral change. And unfortunately, the government is lagging on this. And it should be the government that is changing the educational curriculum. But we're not going to sit around and wait for that to happen. We're going to do that now.
There's a question, Sarah, from Leontine Thomas, who says, could you please share the declaration with us, for us to share the Ubuntu Young Men's Declaration? Is there maybe somewhere where we can go and see it? Is there a website where it's currently uploaded?
I will make sure it's uploaded today on our website. We're ubuntufootball.com, and I will upload it today.
Okay, wonderful. I couldn't agree with you more, Nicole, with regards to the re-education that needs to take place. Sarah, how exactly are you doing this? Because I know at Ubuntu Football, you have mentorships, you have leadership training. How exactly are you, mentoring these young men to make better decisions and to become the leaders that they need to be in their homes and in their families and in their communities?
Yes, so this is such a great conversation because we're all coming from such different places, and I really love that. So our family really believes in doing everything we do through relationships. So that's why we came here to South Africa. We didn't come here just to be saviors or to build something great. We came here to learn and to listen and to walk alongside people, which is why we live in the community that we serve in, so that our neighbors are our friends and our family, and we serve them, they serve us. Most of all, we are learning from them because we are the outsiders. So we put ourselves in a mindset and in a place where we are here to just serve and walk alongside people. So in Ocean View, we just try to do that through relationships. We get to know people, we journey alongside of them, and we see how we can assist them. The same thing with the Ubuntu Football Academy. When we started it, we started with just a soccer team. My husband is a soccer coach, and so when he started, that was one of the big kind of goals or concepts, but we quickly learned we needed more and more time with these young men. In order to make a deep heart change for any of us, it takes a long journey. It takes a long time, a lot of conversation, a lot of wrestling, a lot of uncovering things that are going on inside of you. That's for women and men. The only way to empower any of ourselves is to know ourselves, to know what has hurt us, to know what has traumatized us, like Grizelda shared about so much. The reason she is the incredible woman that she is because she's faced that darkness and that trauma, and she's walked a journey. So we do the same thing with our boys. We have education with them all day. They're with us in the morning for training. Then they have school all day until 4. And then 30 of them actually live in a residence with us. 2 of them actually live with our family even. And the goal of that is just to have a lot of conversation, a lot of time where we're uncovering, unpacking the good, bad, and the ugly, and walking a journey. There's not a destination of a footballer, or he has to have this job, or he has to believe these things. We just want every young man to be all he was created to be, which is the same thing God wants for every single one of us. But that's only happens through a long journey of relationship and really just loving people. And that's what we do at Ubuntu, and that's what our family does.
I've got a question here for anyone on the panel coming through from Zilla April, who says, emotional abuse is such a tricky type of abuse to identify. What are the standout signs and symptoms when dealing with emotional abuse?
I think emotional abuse is when somebody, for me, I was called all kinds of names. To make me feel very less of a person, to make me feel like I'm not going to make it out of that room. And I think every man that, did whatever he wanted to do with me used to say so many words that would make me feel like this is what I deserve. And there's no need for me to cry. There would be sometimes the words of, there's no need for you to cry. Nobody's going to come and save you. Nobody cares about how you look like, and those are the sort of the signs for me, somebody just putting you down and making you feel less of who you are, because you know who you are sometimes. I mean, every woman, we're women, we love the mirror. You put on makeup, you don't put on makeup. At the end of the day, we women still go to that mirror and look at ourselves, even if we don't say something. But if you're going to look in the mirror and feel as if you are not the woman you want to be, then clearly there's somebody that is putting down your spirit by words of discouragement to you. And I think that would be the first sign ever in a 3-day relationship. It could be with a friendship. It could be in a working or it could be with a guy that you met. And don't listen to the little voices that tell you from people that you know, oh, but that's just how he is. They're never going to change. You know, even with myself, I have to constantly, you know, my son would correct me like, Mom, why do you have to say I'm, you know, our kids, they call us out. Our kids call us out.
Yeah.
Especially when we are mothers and we have our moments of PMS, and PMS has a mental, emotional state on us, especially with women that come from trauma. So yeah, my son, he puts me in check, like, Mom, why? And then I'm going like, dude, it's PMS. Let's not have this conversation. Okay, but you don't have to say I'm stupid. Although he's wrong. So those are the things that I have learned from him, that, hey, you're not going to get upset with this kid. He didn't do anything. You know, be nice. And if you don't like what people told you years ago, you know, because I think that relationship with whoever you have as a woman, and the person says something, even jokingly, because there's this thing that we are learning now from media and social media. People say things now on media, knowing, you know, it's a big new world, you know, normal life now, social media is a thing. So even if people make fun of people's bodies, it's normal. But the next person is getting hurt. And that also for me is emotional abuse. And that's where it starts when it comes to abuse. Yeah.
Yeah. And abuse, you know, at the end of the day is abuse. And I think sometimes because we think, oh, he's not hitting me or he's not being physical with me, it's still okay. But there are far-reaching psychological impacts of emotional abuse that sometimes, I don't know if any of you have watched The Invisible Man, but that really is such an incredible story of the long-ranging effects of what emotional and psychological abuse does for you. It traps you in this life where you can't go out, you don't feel confident, you can't speak to people, you're afraid of everyone around you, and you begin to believe the lies that the abuser tells you.
Yeah.
So if that is something that anyone is going through right now, it is not okay for someone to speak down to you, to ill-treat you, to say negative things to you in order to control you. That is abuse, and it is something that if you can, you need to walk away from, or find someone that you can speak to in order to get out of that, because that it does not get better. In fact, it gets worse. Talking about, actually not talking about this, I wanted to go back to something that had happened before the webinar had actually started. Sarah and Nicole were having a conversation, and Nicole, you are very, very passionate about empowerment and Fight Back SA. And Sarah was asking you, where does this passion come from? And you shared a little bit about yourself, just to give us an idea of where this Fight Back passion comes from, and why you work with this and are so passionate about helping women on the level that you do.
Thanks, Leigh-Anne. So I was working at Parliament a couple of years ago, and I was working in a research and communications directorate. And in this unit, I had been given the portfolios in the departments of police, of justice, so anything along those themes. And I was constantly required to draft press statements and speeches for politicians talking about these issues. And one day I was asked to follow certain court cases. And one of the court cases that I had to follow to include in one of these speeches was that of Courtney Peters. And if you'll remember, beautiful, little, innocent Courtney Peters, she was a very, very young little girl. I think she was still a toddler, when the man that her and her mother were sharing a shack with got annoyed with her because he was watching TV. So he fed her something like rat or ant poison. And when she started to complain that she was in pain, he strangled her and killed her. And after killing her, he penetrated her. And I remember reading the story and thinking, I'm not going to write a speech about this. I'm not going to let some man go onto a podium and talk, you know, use this as a political grandstanding gesture to talk about women's rights. Someone needs to do something about this. It cannot be that this is what is happening to our women, to our children. And I strongly believe in what Lucinda Evans says. She's an activist in Lavender Hill. And she says, my child is your child. My sister is your sister. My mother is your mother. And when I was reading this court case about Courtney Peters, I felt like she was my child. I felt like she was my little sister. And I remember writing down on a piece of paper, I wish South African women could fight back. And that's how Fight Back SA started. And that's why we do what we do. We're teaching women to break bones. We're teaching women to use an attacker's knife against him. We're teaching women how to disarm guns. We're teaching women how to get out of a chokehold. If a man is on top of you, pin you to the ground and choking you out. We're teaching 5-year-olds how to get out of those situations. And it's harrowing and it's traumatizing and it's despicable. But what alternative do we have? Are we going to wait for the police to get better? Are we going to wait till they're more responsive, better capacitated? Are we going to wait for the president to give us the money he promised last year? We're not. And we're going to empower women today and tomorrow and every single other day. We're going to teach them how to show an attacker that if he is going to damage a South African woman's body, be it a woman, a child, a member of the LGBTI society. The other day, we taught our first deaf and mute gender-based violence survivor. If you're deaf and you're mute, we're going to teach you how to break a leg. So that's where the fight comes from, because that's what's right.
Well, that is where the fight comes from. It is what is right. So in terms of right now, where we are at, Nicole, I think that there's a lot of talk around it. Government has made so many promises. You know, women are coming together more than ever before to highlight these, to fight back. But for each and every woman right now, sitting in front of their phone or sitting in front of their computer, what do you want to share with each one of us right now when it comes to us as individuals for the road forward? Because I think a lot of us, whether we have been in situations like that or have not been in situations like that, we need to be prepared. And I think that that's what Fight Back stands for. It is not just waiting for something to happen, but it's saying, should it happen, or if it has happened to you already, this is what needs to be done. What needs to be done?
Wonderful thing, and there's only one wonderful thing about gender-based violence, is that this is a space that is dominated by women's voices, and we're the ones that are championing the change. And in that, there is something so beautiful. There is so much hope. There is so much that can be achieved. So for all the women that are listening, or all the future activists, whether you're a woman or you're a man, there are so many things that you can do to help us fight back, to help every woman fight back, to help Sarah, to help Grizelda, to help Leigh-Anne fight back. And I'd like to just mention a few of them today so that you can get involved. Grizelda mentioned that when she was going through this journey, she was supported by people, by regular people, by organizations. So add your name to those organizations. Find out about your local advocacy or activism network and join as a volunteer, even if all you're doing is helping spread posters over WhatsApp. It's something so simple, and yet it creates so much awareness. So that's something that you can do immediately. The second thing is, you know, you can really empower lots of local organizations. If you've got some extra rands, there are lots of gender-based violence networks out there that currently have merch lines, that currently can offer you something in exchange for your donation. With Fight Back SA, you can buy a little bralette that is made locally by a woman-owned business. And that little bralette sponsors 12 girls to do a self-defense class. So you can put your money in places where you can see the change being affected. The other thing that I want to say is, don't be afraid to join a march. If your local community or area is hosting a protest, go and join it. I promise you it will change your life. You will love every second of it, and you will meet like-minded individuals there, and you will be able to join that network in an entirely new way. And the last thing I want to mention is that you can join this fight legislatively as well. We don't need lawyers and male politicians in parliament to be writing gender-based violence bills. As it stands right now, there is a victim support services bill that is before parliament. It is out for public comment right now. You, as a woman at home on your phone, as a mother, as a sister, as a grandmother, as an aunt, you can draft comments on that bill. So go look up that bill, put your comments in as an actual woman, not as some lawyer in some fancy office somewhere. go and write down what changes you want to see in that legislation, because you deserve to, you have a right to. And if you have access to any social media platform, you can inbox us on Fight Back and say, we will send the bill to you for you to make your comments to it. So there's a range of ways of getting involved, and that is what makes this movement such a beautiful one, and one that inspires hope and power and change, because it's being led by women, and we're not going to stop.
And that right there was the passion that Sarah was speaking about. Come on, we're here for it. Grizelda, for every young girl, for every woman, and also for every man, you know, just today on my radio station, I got a message from a man who said, I too have been physically abused by the woman in my life. And it happens, and maybe there's also just so much shame because, you know, men don't want to speak out about it, and not even at the hands of a woman, maybe at the hands of another man. You have survived so much, and you sit here today in front of all of us, really as a beacon of hope that we can survive the most horrendous things that happen to us in this life. What is your words of hope and inspiration for the young person, woman, man that's sitting here right now that is so desperately needing something to hold on to, and so desperately needing a little bit of hope for, you know, their future and what is to come?
Thank you again, Leigh-Anne and Good Hope FM. I would say firstly to the young people, you know, when I wrote my book, you know, I was, you know, just coming out of the worst. You know, I couldn't write or spell properly. Even now, you know, just 2 years ago, I tried to do my grade 12 and grade 11 by the support of the Ackermans Foundation, and I didn't make it, and it's quite painful. So I totally understand what young people go through, and sometimes they just escape into the places where traffickers hope you will, because the peer pressure is crazy at school. I mean, so escaping to those spaces of social media and meeting somebody and them saying they are your age, that is a trafficker hoping to, you know, get you into and give you money and give you cell phones, and that's your way of escaping. And traffickers are aware of households where kids are in a family households where the father is the abuser or the stepfather, and our young girls right now, they don't have communities where you can say, I can go to somebody's house that is a social worker, or I can go to somebody's house that I know that she's a counselor and she won't share my, you know, that stigma is still in our communities. But I would like to say to young people, I had to find a book to read. I had to write down my thoughts and pains, and every word that I tried to keep on writing, which was very painful, when I was able to spell it right, the pain will be released. And be proud of the fact you've made it. You know, sometimes I go to shelters and I speak to girls that are in shelters and let them know that, yeah, this shelter is full of 28 girls. You guys are all from this, and you wish to have a life where you're with your family. But trust you me right now, this is the safest place, actually better than households these days. So that's also just encouraging young girls to say, hold on, you have an amazing couple of years. And I also encourage a lot of women saying, I have my name back, you know, my name is Grizelda Grootboom, but there's something next to it. And I don't like that. It hurts. It's Grizelda Grootboom, the survivor of this, sex slavery. Going on a date, it's hard because men wants this so-called girl. So if the guy asks me what I do, the minute I tell him, he feels all, you know, and that hurts as a woman, as a young woman. But it doesn't stop me because I get to meet other women. And you know what? If you get invited to things like gatherings at church and you're like, oh gosh, you've heard the words about church. There's that one old lady that's willing to give you a hug, or there's that one young girl that wished to have a great young friend like you too. So, you know, my hope, I found it in the most small, simple things ever. And I know that the world and society make it looks like, oh, you need this, you need that. No, I find it in the most smallest things. You know, in me today, I hang out and I watch cartoon with my kid, and he would be the funniest person. You know, I would enjoy ourselves together. And also to the mothers that have the opportunities and the resources but feel like, I don't want to be part of this, I really want to warn you that the country, there's a national strategy plan right now, and in that national strategy plan, guys, they are pushing for legalization of prostitution. So that means your kids can basically say at the age of 16, she's going to be able to bring a client to the house. Partake in these things. This has got nothing to do with politics. This has got nothing to do with, oh, it's their say, because no, these are your daughters, and your kids are going to leave the house. They're going to go to res, they're going to go to campus, they're going to go overseas. But if these laws are being implemented and passed by, that means your kid can say, Mom, I don't have to finish school. And one day you're going to come from work and there's this legalization of prostitution and find yourself in a house with your child with a buyer. So these are the things I'd like to say to women that has the power to partake into changing the law, changing the legislations. Look at these governmentally conversations that's going on. With the National Strategy Plan right now, it's you know, it was just modeled, it was made out of, and there was no survivors that was making that paper document. There was no engagement of society, meaning there is a manipulation on this document, and it's going to be passed without society being there. Again, with boys, you're not a boy when you start watching porn. You're not a cool guy when you start thinking, oh my gosh, this is what girls are. No, that's not you being the guy at school. Trust you me. The minute I started writing my book, I was writing it saying to myself, I'm writing this book just in case my son come across a video clip of me in a porn website, and if he does, there will be something that he understands. Educating our boys that, you know, just watching these porn movies, you should know that there was a kid that was trafficked. There was a kid that ended up in somebody's house, and this is how she ended up in a porn movie. So please, boys, please, young guys, I just want to plead with you. I know this is the most fast tracking times in our lives, where everything is by a click or by a retweet or by Instagram. It doesn't end well, you know, like we say, there's so many slogans on social media, it's going to end up in tears. The same thing, you know, boys are also being groomed right now to be used for sex slavery. We go and we do drive through certain areas in Stellenbosch and everywhere, and boys will be like invited to go and play soccer. They end up in somebody else's house to be used for sex slavery or to be drugged up to become a pimp. So basically, I would like to say to boys that are listening to the radio, that are listening to this webinar, there is nothing cool about you raping or laughing at a porn movie. You don't know whose daughter that might be. And please stand with your friends. You know, if a girl says no, it's no. Sometimes I know girls are shy. Sometimes I know the hormones go crazy. I've sat in class in grade 12 last year, and yeah, the peer pressure is there. But when she says no, even when she's joking, you are safe. You don't want a criminal record at the age of 18 and say that you've raped a girl. I always tell my son that if she doesn't like you, dude, it's cool. That there's another girl that she can take on a date. But if she says the word no, it's become a legal word. It has become a word that they can use against you. And gender-based violence and femicide is real. A lot of it's on both sides now. Girls are using it against boys, and boys are using against girls. So I like to educate boys and tell them, when the girl says no, jokingly, say, okay, thank you. It was nice chatting with you. So that would be my advice. And again, if people are looking for further parts of, you know, with Embrace Dignity, we empower a lot. We do a lot of workshops. I'm always open to go and be at schools, you know, inviting me to speak. And I've been into schools for the past 5 years with the book Exit. I am reprinting Exit independently. And if people want the book, they will definitely have to hit me up on social media. And I'm pushing the book to be in libraries and be in schools so kids can read it, because that's what it is. That's the time we are in. Kids are reading things, and I think that should be a way forward for our children these days, as educating them as much as they can and go in these spaces. There are times where I sit the whole night and go through some porn websites, and it's insane. Kids under the age of 12 are there. So parents, please be part of your children's life. And thank you so much.
I love that part. Parents, please be part of your children's lives. I think that, parents might feel like, you want your child to live, you want them to be children, social media is rife. We don't know necessarily what's going on your child's phone, who they're talking to. You might be blocked from their Instagram. How important is it today more than ever that parents are involved, that they are there, that they are present, that they don't leave parenting to someone else, because that could be the defining factor between your child being safe or maybe being trafficked?
In this time of COVID-19, it was very hard for traffickers to, get and get young people, young girls into the brothels, through the borders. So they did it through a lot of internet during COVID-19. So a lot of traffickers were able to go into these kiddies games and sort of play a game with them, because that's how they start chatting. My son was playing one game, and he was up around 12, and I was like, who are you chatting with? And he was like, no, I'm playing with my friend from the other side. And I said, but that doesn't sound like somebody talking. That person sounds like they're busy doing something with themselves while you're playing. And the person he was playing with was literally asking him, like, how's your reaction when you shoot that gun? And so the sound effect was really arousing this pedophile. So traffickers are using the internet quite a lot these days. A lot of kids are being groomed through the internet, and that's why we're trying to fight quite a lot right now for kids, for parents to connect with their kids, no matter what. Sign yourself up with your Gmail. Make sure you're connecting with the games that is in. Try to play the game, you as a parent too, and join in. You'd be so shocked on these games they play with other people from other countries. I was blown out of my mind when I was like, okay, this guy is literally doing something while my kid is going, and apparently that's what pushes them. So traffickers have really pushed to the spaces of internet. And the same thing when I would say to young kids, again, I sometimes wish some of our celebrities would really, really be the ones that says this glamorous life is 1, 2, 3, and be honest about it. Because our young girls look up to them. Our young girls see that, oh, wow, you are traveling. Oh, wow, you're doing this. And not knowing that you're going to end up with a bottle of water with ecstasies in it, or a bottle of water with a lot of cough mixture and eye drop, which is becoming the new thing to sort of numb your child's mind and get a high. So parents, I would say, you know what, if you're going to drop her off at the mall, we're going to spring, September now, and we know how beautiful Cape Town can be. Please, check up on your kids. Let us share the location on the WhatsApp where it is. You can only share the location. And if she's saying she's sharing the location through a friend's phone, just say no. You want it from her phone, because the WhatsApp thing right now is becoming very easy for them to work around. So if your children are out and about and they say they're with a friend, tell her to share the location where she is. With the Uber driving, please, please, please verify the drivers. It's very important. Parents, I try my level best to tell parents, you know what, if you're going to let your child take an Uber from school, or the schools also, they've come across with Ubers, a hotel, somebody's in a hotel and they're chatting on this mix it and stuff like this. And then this guy sends an Uber to the school, and you see a child walk out, getting into a car, and she's being dropped at a hotel with an older man. That is also happening quite a lot, and that's how our girls are disappearing. So with schools also, we would like to say, you know, try to check with the parents. Yes, the age of 16 legally apparently is consent, but I don't think you want to wake up and you know, hear my voice at 2 a.m. trying to ask you, what was she wearing? And that's the worst phone call I hate every day. Every day we get a phone call of a mother crying and saying she was at school, she was wearing this, she was doing this. Traffickers are changing the dress code the minute they get your kids. So young people, you running this race because you want to be in a space of Instagram, long hair, iPhone, it's not going to end well. It's going to end up in tears, like you guys like saying. And I don't think that's where you would love to be. And again, I cannot emphasize this more. Parents, be part of your children's life. And when I say your children's life, we've just seen a girl that did her first year, you know, in Verts. She was stabbed by a boyfriend. And the minute your kids start talking to you about their personal lives, trust you me, be there. The counselors can only do so much, but you as the parent, when she says anything about this new guy in her life, when she says anything about the way she likes to look like because she's going out with new friends, please be part of it. You will pick up some red flags, and you as a parent, you will know. Thank you so much. And I really hope and pray that as a country, women and girls can come together and fight femicide.
I just saw Sarah nodding away there, because Sarah, you too you're a mom, you are very involved in your community of Ocean View, you are mentoring these young men as a part of Ubuntu football. What, as we prepare to close, what would you like us to all take away from this session that we've had? I know that we're not going to fix it all today, but I think these are all stepping stones to eradicating the scourge that is gender-based violence in our country.
Yes, and again, Leigh-Anne, thank you for spearheading this. This is such an important conversation, but incredibly sacred and important space this is. I would say two short things. The first is to our many friends who are listening from all over. This conversation to many women has been triggering. And it's bringing up things, and you're scared, or you're mad, or a memory has come up, or something is happening within you. And I want to encourage you, women, that you are not alone, as Grizelda said, that there are professionals, there are friends, there are pastors, there are leaders that can walk with you. Find someone. If there's something that's coming up in you, something that's happened to you, I have been the person to so many women and girls and men to share something that has hurt them, has traumatized them, but you can't carry it alone, and you're not created to, and you can find healing. You can find hope again, like Grizelda was sharing. You don't have to stay in that dark place. You can find healing, you can find hope, you can find a new path out. And so I don't want you to take this conversation and let it kind of bring you back in even more. I want to encourage you that there is hope, there is healing, and find someone that you can trust that can help you and walk a journey, because you don't have to be alone, and you don't have to do this alone. There is hope. But then I would share that I see hope every day. I admire you women so much, Nicole and Grizelda, for what you do and what you hear every single day. And you must have incredible people around you to help you as you process what you see and hear. But for me, I've seen and heard those things as well. I've done funerals for women who have been violently killed. I have received women in my home who are running from predators, people they loved. I've gone to homes to try and help women who are being hurt. But I've also watched so many women heal and find new hope. And that is what is possible in South Africa. The heart of a South African woman is fierce and can grow and can change, and has so much capacity to change not only our families and our communities, but this world. I have a good friend, Rhoda, in Ocean View. I met her early on in my time, 11 years ago. She was in a very bad, traumatic, dangerous relationship. She had a baby with this person, and so she felt like she needed to stay in this relationship and make it work out. But over time, she eventually warmed up to me, started speaking speaking with me, came to my home. We had Bible study. We shared time together. She started getting to know people that were positive, healthy, hopeful, and started a healing journey. Now she has a son who is finishing up his journey at a primary school, an incredible young man that she's raised alone. I recently had the privilege 2 years ago of marrying her to her Prince Charming, this incredible, godly, strong man full of integrity. And I have watched her walk a path of healing and fullness. Rhoda is my inspiration, one of many. And so I want to encourage you women to walk alongside other women. Take this journey together. We are not alone, and the way that we rise is by lifting others. The way that you gain and grow and the way that you're inspired is by seeing inspired hearts around you. So let's change South Africa together. Let's see the heart of women healed, whole, risen, and what we were created to be. It is possible. It is something that we can see in our lifetime. We have to heal, and then we have to do it together.
We have to do it together. Final words, ladies, as we wrap up our second Warrior Women webinar. Nicole, I will start off with you.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I am so honored to be standing by your side, by Sarah's side, by Grizelda's side, and I am so looking forward to continuing this engagement, especially amongst the four of us. I think we've got some wonderful change to bring to South Africa. Thank you so much for making this space happen, Leigh-Anne. You really are such a phenomenal woman. Thank you.
Well, I am so blessed to be surrounded by other phenomenal women like you, amazing ladies, and everyone else that is connected with us today. Nicole, there have been some calls for people that want to get hold of you. How do people make contact with you after this webinar?
So we are available to anybody and everybody across a range of online platforms. We've got our website, www.fightbacksa.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. You just reach out to us and we will get back to you within the hour. And anyone who wants to organize a free self-defense class for their communities, please reach out to us. We come through to any community. It doesn't matter how high risk it is, how dangerous it is, we will be there.
That is so awesome. Grizelda, there were some calls of people saying, where can we get hold of the book? In the voice of Oprah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. I am independently reprinting my book again. So definitely if you can reach me on Facebook on Grizelda Grootboom, inbox me and I'll give you all the information on there. I'm very much open on public speaking. Just reach me on social media, or you can also email at info@survivorexit.org. info@survivorexit.org. Thank you so much. I am so filled with so much joy and peace and strength just sitting with these incredible four women, Leigh-Anne and Group FM. Thank you so much. You know, just coming out of COVID-19, it feels good. It feels so amazing to be with people and sharing my story with so amazing women. You know, sometimes you share your story and yes, the trauma takes place, but I felt that I was at peace. I could still sit here. Usually I would just stand up and cry and go, but I was still sitting here. And thank you for everybody for the amazing messages on social media. Again, Group FM, you guys are amazing. And Leigh-Anne, we love you so much. Thank you.
I love you. You know, I wish that we could all just do a big old group hug right now. We can't necessarily hold hands, but I feel, and I don't know if you agree with me, like we're holding hearts right now. We're holding each other's hearts, and that is such a powerful place to be at. And I know that we can't necessarily see the women and also some of the men that are joining us today, but I feel the love so much. And also, Sarah, I want to thank you so much for that declaration. Once again, where can we find it? Because I think that that is something that people so much want to see and potentially share as well.
Yes, so our website is ubuntufootball.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, Ubuntu Football. We'll post it on all of our Instagram and Facebook and on our website again. And I am Sarah Collins Prince, Facebook, and Sarah C. Prince on Instagram. We'd love to connect, and let's be the change that we want to see. Let's do it together.
Wonderful. Well, to you amazing ladies, Nicole, Mirkin, Grizelda, Grootboom, Sarah Prince, thank you so much for spending your Tuesday afternoon with us. This right here was gold. Man, I feel like I'm just going to cry after this, but good tears for what we've been able to talk about. You know, a good cry is always necessary. What we've been able to talk about, and just the release, you know, for every single one of us that are feeling the sense of heartbrokenness that we feel in our country for what is going on. But let us pick ourselves up and let us continue the fight, because the fight continues, and we need to be the light that we want to see in this world. So thank you to the lights that are here with us today. Nicole, Grizelda, Sarah, you are amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us today and for being here. And to every single person that registered on goodupfm.co.za, and whether you're joining us on Zoom or Facebook or even YouTube, thank you for making the time today, for joining us. And if you did register on Good Up FM, one lucky person today is walking away with a hamper that includes a 1,000 Rand voucher from Engen and a 1,000 Rand shopping voucher from Canal Walk. And that person is, let me grab my envelope here, being very, very, very mysterious. And the winner is, it's actually on my screen, Deirdre Festus! Congratulations! A round of applause to Deirdre Festus. Good Up FM will be making contact with you to let you have your prize, and we certainly hope that you are going to spoil yourself, because you deserve it. And to everyone that joined us today, once again, a big thank you from Good Up FM, a big thank you from Engen, a big thank you from myself, Leigh-Anne Williams. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, for another Warrior Women webinar. Until next week.